Hey skiers and snowboarders in the Southeast, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. After a very warm and wet December, it continues for a couple more days, but that change I've been talking about for New Year's is arriving on schedule. Really good pattern starting to shape up for the new year. Actually, colder air is actually moving in for most of the country tonight. Eastern half of the country still holding on to some warm air, especially in the southeast. But really, more and more, we're starting to see the signs of that pattern change. Stalled front across the southeast means all rain. But I tell you what, there's not snow too far away up in the Midwest and almost all the way down to Wisp and areas of western Maryland and even not too far away from West Virginia, where there's going to be some cooler air trying to work in, especially by Thursday into Friday. That stalled front to the south stays there. And if you look carefully, this is all rain down here, but there's a little bit of snow showing up there in West Virginia. That's a sign of some changes. How much snow are we talking about? Not a lot. This is not a big deal. This is more of a sign of the pattern change. And you could see on Thursday some white stuff beginning to show up in parts of West Virginia. And that's a sign of that colder air working in just in time for the new year. What I'm more excited for is the longer range pattern, because after this storm moves through, the pattern flips pretty dramatically and we start to see cooler air move in, and there are true signs we might actually see some significant snow if these models start to work out in our favor. We get some moisture in here with the cool air. But we'll take the cold air first, because to me that's the bigger story. We're going to be able to make snow probably starting New Year's Eve into New Year's Day and then right through the upcoming weekend. You can see how Thursday that cold air works its way down through West Virginia, and by the time we get to Friday, we're starting to see below freezing temperatures popping up in a lot of the mountain communities into the weekend. Here's that pattern though. Look at the change. Cold air really spills in across the eastern half of the country, and it actually sticks around this time into next week. Now, there are signs we could see some little warm-ups like next Wednesday, but even that doesn't look like it's going to last long. It looks like the cold air tries to make another comeback late next week. To me, this is the best sign so far this winter. This is something we call the Arctic Oscillation. And if you follow weather or long-range patterns, this is something you should be looking at for a hint of cooler air coming. This is the zero line. When these indices get below zero, or negative we call it, this is a sign that Arctic air is going to spill into the eastern half of the country. You can see here, this is the early warm-up in December into the Christmas holiday. Look how above normal it is, but look at the forecast. Last several runs of very negative levels of the Arctic Oscillation. That's a European model version of it. Here's the American model. It shows the same thing, -3 or 4. So almost a complete flip from the pattern we had in December. As we go into January, we should see colder air on the move into the eastern half of the country. Another indice to look at is the North Atlantic Oscillation. This indicates blocking usually in the North Atlantic. And this works out sometimes, doesn't always work out, but is a sign of storminess. When it's negative, it usually means cool, stormy weather for the east. It's not as negative as the Arctic Oscillation, but it's much more negative, and it's a complete opposite of what we had in the middle of December. So one of the graphics I like to look at quite a bit is a probability map. GFS 15-day probability of seeing 1 inch of snow. And you could see all across the Carolinas and Virginia and the mountains, pretty good chance we're going to see some snow, especially up in West Virginia. Almost 100% chance we're going to get at least 1 inch of snow in the next 2 weeks, likely much more than that. And for the mountains in North Carolina, you're probably talking the 30–40% range. And even for snow lovers east of the mountains, there's a chance we could see some winter stuff. A little too early to get too specific. It's more about the pattern recognition. We're going to see colder, stormier weather. Are we going to see a bunch of Arctic air or a big snowstorm? Not likely right now. We're looking at weather getting back to more typical winter weather in the southeast, which at this point in the season is all we need, because December was like spring. We need to see the cold air move in, and this could be a good kickstart to maybe stormier and colder weather as we get later into January. So the first 2 weeks of the month looking near average, maybe getting very well and very cold by the beginning and middle. I see the middle and end of January into early February. So good news going into the weekend. We'll have another update coming up on Thursday night. By then, we actually should see the cold air and the possible snow falling. But keep your fingers crossed. We could be skiing this weekend in many locations. Hope you have a great Wednesday. And as always, think snow.